Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Green Room, a Willcox Theater and Arts podcast all about creative people, creative topics, and creative projects. I am your host, Wesley Schofield, and this is the first ever episode of our podcast. We sat down with Mari DeGrazia. She is the main instructor of our Makerspace program that we have here called smARTMAKER Lab, and she tells us a little story about her getting into tech, what she's doing now, and how the class itself is going. So please sit down, get comfortable, and welcome to the show. All right, I am here with Mari DeGrazia, and she is the, I would say, main instructor of our smARTMAKER lab here at Studio 128. And I just want to start off with, what do you do besides this, and where are you from?
Well, I'm originally from Washington, but I live in Tucson, Arizona. What else do I do besides this? Well, my day job is pretty much chasing hackers out of networks. I do cybersecurity for a company called Kroll, and I've been in the IT industry probably for about 20 years now, specializing the last 8 or 10 years doing digital forensics and incident response.
Oh, wow. Probably like the coolest job title of all time. So how did you get started in the industry specifically?
In the computer industry or in the maker stuff that we do here?
Like tech in general. Like what got you started?
So my dad actually brought home an Apple II Plus. I think I was probably in about the 3rd or the 4th grade, and I absolutely fell in love with computers at that point in time. So eventually went to college, got a computer science degree, started out doing IT tech, crawling underneath tables, unplugging cables, building computers, and just kind of worked my way up in the industry from there.
That's really cool. Okay. And so, I mean, doing this smARTMAKER thing is like easily like the coolest thing ever. I mean, like, especially like nowadays, like robotics is so accessible, like in general, like to everyone. Like coding even is more drag and drop than writing line after line of code. So why do you think this is an important job?
So I think this is great. One, I think it's important. So one of my goals is with women in the industry, they find that younger girls start out very interested, but they don't carry that through. I can't remember the grades exactly, but basically they start out interested and kind of lose interest after time. I really want to kind of leverage this, just not for girls, but part of my goal is to make projects that are interesting kind of and attractive for both girls and for boys, to get them interested in it, to see what it's all about. And the neat thing about the maker movement is sometimes with programming, it's kind of intangible, but when you take something physical and tie it, so now you're programming a motor, or maybe you're programming some lights to blink, there's some immediate feedback on what you're doing. And at the end of the day, the kids get to build out a project, they get to make some changes, they get to see immediately what those changes are, they get to troubleshoot. And I think whether or not they go into the tech industry, all those skills are really important no matter where they end up.
Oh, for sure. Like when I was talking to the students earlier, like their favorite part was coding, because you do a thing and you immediately get to see how it works.
Exactly.
Like instantly. I mean, because like building the body of the gun, like, I mean, I think that's really cool still. And like they seem to enjoy it, but they said favorite part for sure is coding. Because like you get to play with all the lights, all the sounds, and like the weird options that you would think, like you don't even know what they do. And then you plug it in and see where it goes.
Yep.
Do you think kids overall, like what's your perception of like kids' enjoyment of the projects?
I think they really like it. I like it because as soon as something kind of clicks, you can see it in their faces. They kind of go through 3 or 4 steps and some troubleshooting to make something work. Then all of a sudden, everything falls together. And you kind of see that light go off like, wow, I just did this. I just made this. I programmed it to do this. Or now I can, do X, Y, Z. And the really cool thing is they think of a lot of things that when I'm envisioning and working on the projects, I don't even think of. So it's really cool to kind of see them think outside of the box and do other things. And I'm excited because that's like our future generation, our future thinkers, and they're already thinking outside of the box. Yeah.
I mean, it's really cool. Not only just to empower like the self-confidence of like, I can do it, because surprisingly, like people don't believe in themselves. But like when you actually see like a light turn on, like both physically like on the switchboard, but also like in their head, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
What's your favorite project we've done thus far?
I like the bubble blower project. I thought was really neat. I have to, when I think about the projects, I want them to be complicated enough so that they're challenging, but not so complicated that they're disheartening or frustrating. And I felt like the bubble blower was a great mix because they could build something with our hands, but the other half was also the programming. And I felt that it kind of really hit the sweet spot with the age groups, as far as being easily accessible to the kids, but still also challenging enough for the older kids that they could work on it well. So, and it's also just fun to see a bunch of bubbles blowing around. Everybody just loved, we put it outside and the bubbles were blowing, and it was just a fun thing to do.
Yeah, when we did that one with Cochise kids, especially, like, to see the variation in their design too, because like we showed them like, this is how you do it, and they're like, okay, great, and immediately just ran like with the idea. Like,
exactly.
You get so much variety. So we have your article here in Hackspace, right?
Yes, yeah. Hackspace Magazine.
Yes, very cool. I've always been a huge fan of physical print media, even though it is kind of dying out. But how did you get your article in this one?
How did that come about? So there are actually 2 magazines that I know about, Hackspace, and the other one's, I think, Maker. I can't think of the name right now. 2 magazines, and I actually submitted the idea to both of them, and the Hackspace magazine went with it. I was really thrilled to find out that they actually paid for an article. Usually when I've written articles for magazines before, they don't pay for it. And I didn't do it for the money, but I was just like, oh wow, that's kind of cool, that they also paid for it. But I just submitted the idea to them, let them know, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is why I think it's interesting. And this is one of those projects where I kind of thought of the idea and carried it out from beginning to end. A lot of times I'll kind of piggyback on someone else's idea or modify it, but I literally had not seen anything else like this out there. So I thought it would be really, I just wanted to share it with other people, and a magazine is a great way to do that, and it gives me something to do instead of watching TV all the time.
Oh, for sure. And so for some context for our listeners, we have her LED door hanger article posted up, and it was for your daughter, right?
Yeah. So originally my daughter, she plays Dungeons and Dragons, and she would always tape this sign on the outside of her door because she just did not want me walking in while she's hanging out with her friends, because then, I'm not cool, right?
Well, nothing sounds a little more embarrassing over the mic when you're like in a raid and it's like, all right, guys, we need our healer. And you have your mom. What do you want for dinner?
Yeah, exactly. I think she was trying to avoid that. So I was like, we've got this paper sign taped on the door. Well, I'm into electronics and computer programming. I'm like, I can do better than that. So I was like, what can I do? So that's kind of how I came up with the idea and worked on it. Probably it took me about a month and a half just going through the different variations, getting it to work and the programming. And then when I was done with it, I was like, I really want to share this. And I thought that would be a fun way to share it, was by having it published in a magazine.
Yeah, and I love that it's customizable too, because like the keep out thing is a good classic, especially with the skull. But it's cool that like maybe she can program different messages, like so she can even probably put on what she's even doing. Like, hey, I'm in the middle of this. Like, I'm going to take this long. Don't bother me.
Yeah, exactly. The messages are customizable, and there's even instructions on there how you can make your own pictures to display it. And it's even animated. There's like a Pac-Man that kind of goes up and down, and it will chomp up the words as it goes. So I think it's a lot of fun. And the case itself is customizable too. You can print it out in different colors. You can put different, you can decorate it with different things if you want that too.
Very cool. And speaking of printing, like, so you have all this at home? This is like you're in your own workshop?
So a lot of it's in my garage, but I have a couple of 3D printers. 3D printing has become so accessible. For like $250, you can get a 3D printer, and the design software is also free. So I have a lot of that stuff in my garage, and then I have another room that's kind of dedicated for all my maker stuff, because after a while you just get so many different components and everything to keep track of. So I have a couple of areas in the house that I kind of take over when I work on this stuff.
Very cool. And that'll do it for today's episode of The Green Room. Thank you all so much for watching, listening, observing, taking in the podcast we've created. If you want to see more of these, check us out on YouTube, subscribe for more, or check us out on anchor.fm if you want to hear the full audio podcast while you're on the go. Thank you once again, and don't forget to tune in next time.